The year 2024 has brought plenty of challenges for automakers. They must figure out how much to spend on EV marketing as demand cools, while also crafting advertising that wins new audiences, including Gen Z. On this episode of Ad Age's Marketer's Brief podcast, we hear how Ford is confronting these challenges directly from its top marketer, Lisa Materazzo, who joined as global CMO late last year after a lengthy career at Toyota. My name is EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age, and in the following interview, Lisa discusses Ford's new freedom of choice effort, which leans into powertrain flexibility. We also discuss Ford's successful partnership with Sydney Sweeney and how it is an example of how the brand is finding new audiences. Lisa also articulates how her previous career in finance has served her well in the CMO seat. But before we begin, I want to remind our listeners about an upcoming event at Ad Age. Our Business of Brands conference is set for September 18th and 19th in Chicago. Hear from marketing leaders at United Airlines, Molson Coors, State Farm, and more. You can learn more and buy tickets at adage.com/Business of Brands. I'll be there, and I really hope to see you there as well. And now, my conversation with Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the Marketer's Brief podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me here today.
So you joined Ford, I believe, late last year after a very long stint at Toyota. I'm sure you had gotten a lot of offers while you were at Toyota over the years. Why did you make the move to Ford?
It is a great question, and it's one that I get often. So I've always admired Ford as a brand, its rich history and its role in shaping America, not just cars, but manufacturing, as well as the impact that Ford has had on society. Also, I learned how to drive in a Mustang. So the brand really does have special meaning to me. And more recently, with the big bets that Ford has been making on the future, I found that particularly exciting. As you know, the automotive industry is going through a tremendous amount of change. And to be part of a team that is not just reacting to that future and that disruption that's taking place, but getting ahead of it and charting the course was very exciting to me.
So let's talk about one of those big bets that, frankly, all automakers have made in recent years, and that's on electric vehicles. Billions of dollars have been poured into producing and marketing electric vehicles. But in the last year or so, we've seen quite a slowdown on EVs, and there's some new skepticism creeping in. There was a recent report out from McKinsey that stated something like 4 in 10 electric vehicle owners are actually going to buy a combustion engine car for their next purchase. And a lot of people are still concerned about range. How is Ford handling this? I'd imagine it's very difficult right now to figure out how to message to these consumers right now.
Well, it's certainly an interesting challenge for all of the OEMs. We believe that EVs do play a very important role in our future. But like with the adoption of all new technology, it's not going to be linear. So you're right. We do see some changes in the market and softening more recently, but the momentum and the trend line is up. I think for Ford specifically, what we are doing is we are emphasizing the variety of choice that consumers have. We have one of the broadest and I think most appealing lineups of any manufacturer in the industry. So we do have EVs, but we also have ICE. We have hybrid, we have plug-in hybrid. So we have choices for every consumer out there. And our job is to educate. And then our dealer's job is to help those consumers make the choice that's best for them.
Part of your education is a campaign I think is called Freedom of Choice. And I just want to play the audio from one of your ads so our listeners can get a feel for it, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Sure.
There's no one way to power up, as long as Ford is your starting line. Because more important than the power you choose is what you choose to do with it. gas, hybrid, or all electric, the power is yours.
So that's a video ad that folks can also find on YouTube, and we'll put it up on adage.com. And there's a few other ads part of that campaign. Can you talk about that strategy? It's quite a shift, right? I mean, you're basically saying you're downplaying the actual powertrain itself and trying to play up the Ford brand.
Yes, that is part of it. I would say that we don't think it's a shift, though. I would view it more as just educating people to the breadth of our lineup, because the average consumer can be quite confused and overwhelmed by the number of choices. And what our research showed is that we just needed to remind people of what we have, not only the nameplates, but yes, also the powertrains. This was our first fully integrated brand campaign of 2024. And as I said, it was really intended to show this incredible breadth of our Ford lineup, not only in the nameplates, but the powertrains. And the benefit is that we are about more than just the powertrain. So we're giving customers that choice. And whether that's a gas, a hybrid, or an EV, what we really want to emphasize is what that vehicle allows them to do and really ignite their passion.
Since that campaign has been out in the market, I believe for at least a couple of months now, what have your learnings been so far, and what can we look for going forward as you evolve it?
Yes, the campaign has been very well received, not only by our customers, but also our dealers. And I view our dealers as, as a major customer, one of our major stakeholder groups. So it has helped propel our sales forward in terms of the mix of hybrids through the first quarter. So we're very excited about that. And it's shifting perceptions and awareness about what we have in our lineup. And that's, again, exactly what it was intended to do.
So folks probably recognize the voice in that ad, and he's been with you guys for a while now, Brian Cranston. Are you planning to stick with Brian? I believe that's a change that Wyden and Kennedy made when they first took over the Ford account a few years ago.
Yeah, Brian has been serving us really well, very recognizable voice, very much tied to Ford. So no current plans to make any changes there, but we constantly monitor not only that aspect of our campaigns, but every aspect of any go-to-market communication to make sure that it is performing as best as it possibly can.
So I want to talk a little bit about your approach on social media. I've noticed some more episodic content out there. There are some series, something called 48 Hours, another one called Welcome to the Club. These are longer form videos. I know that they've been talked about as being sort of more of a narrative-led, sort of editorial type approach. I know Wyden, your agency, is behind this as well. Can you talk about this approach? One of the examples was a feature on actually a local car club in, I believe in New Orleans, called the Mustang Mafia. And these videos really focus on kind of the people, and Ford is a part of it, but it's different than a traditional advertisement. Can you talk about this approach a little bit?
Certainly. I mean, I can talk about this space in general. I'm not familiar with the example that you actually referenced, but we look at a variety of different content, not only thematic, but also the length of the content to engage with our audiences. And we do think that the storytelling aspect lends itself more to longer form content. So we're always trying to balance that mix between long form and short form content. In terms of the subject matter itself, we love telling stories about our customers. Our customers are so passionate about not only the brand, but our vehicles, and that makes for very compelling storytelling.
One of your more famous loyal customers is Sydney Sweeney, and I know you guys have been working with her for a while. She's an avid Bronco fan. I know has been featured in some of your Bronco marketing. But I think that partnership speaks more broadly to sort of how you're trying to grow your audiences. This is obviously, a female car enthusiast. Can you talk about maybe that campaign itself a little bit, and more broadly how you're kind of going about finding new audiences for Ford?
Sure. Well, we just love Sydney. She she loves our brand. She's such a great representation of our brand. We look at this as a true partnership. It's taken a variety of forms, everything from merchandise to content, and she does resonate with a very specific audience. So as we look at future partnerships like this, it really is finding that intersection between what is true and authentic to the brand and partners that share those values. And that's when we've had the greatest success.
What about younger audiences, Gen Z? There's always seemingly a lot written about is Gen Z really kind of excited about buying cars as previous generations. Is there anything you're doing in particular to reach younger audiences, or can you talk about that strategy a little bit?
Yeah, I think the key with Gen Z is just really understanding what their motivations are, which are different than prior generations. So I think the fact that we have, again, when we go back to our lineup and our products and services, which are highly differentiated and highly value added, especially on the digital side, that is an area for us to connect very closely with a younger audience. Not that those things aren't important to an older audience, but they're particularly important and a higher priority with a younger generation.
What are some things that have really worked for you guys with younger audiences?
Yeah, and well, there's a couple buckets there. So there would be content bucket, there's products and experiences. I like to talk about the experiences. I just get really excited about that area of our business. Um, and one of the things that I enjoy the most is exposing that younger generation to our products in a very hands-on way. So we have a lot of different driving experiences. So I'm going to default to that because I'm a motorsports gal, so I really like products. But we have something called Bronco Off Rodeo. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it is this off-road adventure. We have 4 locations across the United States. It's something that we opened to the public in the later part of 2023. And it's a great opportunity for people to get behind the wheel of a vehicle with professional instruction and just have this wonderful driving experience. People emerge from the vehicle describing it as life-changing. I kid you not. So it really is one of the things when I look at our ways to connect with consumers, I get very excited about. And you mentioned Sydney Sweeney earlier, and Sydney went through that Bronco off-rodeo experience, and she was just surprised and delighted, and she was on social media talking about it because it had such an impact on her.
You mentioned your own love of motorsports there, and I know that when you were announced at Ford, that was part of the press release, talking about growing up in a family of audio enthusiasts, and you said, "My idea of a vacation is going to F1 races around the world." Can you talk a little bit about that upbringing and kinda how you fell in love with cars?
It is. It's such a part of what I do, not only here as part of my job, but even in my spare time, as you had mentioned. So I grew up in upstate New York. I think the probably closest city or town that anyone would recognize is the Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame. So that kind of gets you in the general zip code. But also very close to there is the Watkins Glen Speedway. And from a very young age, I would be there with my 2 older brothers, my dad, and all of them were car fanatics. That's what I knew, that's what I loved, that's what I grew up around, and it was everything from NASCAR races to, back in the day, Formula One race there. And
So
then I ended up marrying an automotive engineer.
Wow. So was your first job in your professional career in automotive, or did you start out somewhere else?
It was not in automotive. I started out in financial services. I actually became an investment broker upon graduating from undergrad. I never imagined in a million years that I would have a career in automotive. But fast forward after my finance or during my finance career, I decided to return to university for a master's degree. And when I graduated with my MBA, that's when I made the move to automotive and specifically with Toyota.
Interesting you have a finance background. I'd imagine it comes in handy. I know, there's a lot of talk about the need for CMOs to speak the language of the CFO. Have you found that background to be helpful for you? And what might be your advice to other CMOs out there about how to kind of speak the language of finance?
It's very helpful. I think if you don't have that finance background, at least educate yourself enough to actively manage your budgets. And I think also actively manage the expenditures in a way that you are sure you're getting a return on investment. especially this day and age when we look at just the media landscape in and of itself. It's become so complex. And in some ways, digital has made it easier to track ROI, but you also have your money, your investments distributed across a greater number of options. So being very thoughtful about where you're placing your bets and using data and using financial data to drive those decisions, I think has been extremely helpful. I'd say the other thing that my finance career taught me was the importance of understanding consumers. When I reflect on that, it was the ultimate education on listening to customers. My clients were entrusting me with their life fortune. They weren't going to stay with me if I didn't carefully listen to them and
Mhm.
understand their needs. And in an odd way, I think that's a really interesting parallel to what I do now and what my team does now. It's all about understanding customers at a very, very deep level, not only what to say to them, but where to say it. So the content you create and where you place that media.
So we already talked about the EV situation, but in that vein, what are you hearing from customers right now? Like as we look forward to the second half of the year and into 2025, what do you think is going to be the greatest demand from consumers when it comes to buying vehicles? Like what's percolating to the top that you have to solve as a marketer, that you have to message around, that you have to position forward to be in the right place to get that business?
Yeah, I think we need to educate. I think we need to educate consumers to the choices and help them unpack the myriad of options they have. When I think about it, and especially the change I've seen over my 20 plus years, there's a proliferation of brands and nameplates and technology within the vehicle and powertrain options, different ways to buy, different ways to research, and different ways to receive messages. That's a lot for your average consumer that has a day job, I'd like to say. They're not thinking about these things as much as we are. So to the extent we can make it really easy and help them navigate those choices and explain those choices, I think that's how we win.
Okay, we're about out of time, but I got to leave with one more question to put you on the spot. I know Toyota, had a strong history of Super Bowl advertising. Ford hasn't done so much of it lately. Are you planning to go back into the game under your leadership next year, or is that not something Ford's into?
Well, never say never, but I like the bets we're making on how to connect with consumers. I referenced Bronco Off Rodeo before. There are several other initiatives that we have like that that I think resonate in a deeper way with our audiences. So I think that linear TV advertising will always play a role in our portfolio, but I want to be very strategic about our bets, and I want to find ways to connect with people that elicit as much passion and engagement as our products. We have very special products. We have icons when you look across our lineup. We have Mustang, 60 years of history, going to Le Mans this weekend. We have F-150, best-selling truck for nearly 50 years in a row. We have the Bronco, we have Maverick. There's not a vehicle like Maverick in the market. So I really want to find ways to connect that are deserving of those special products.
All right, Lisa, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
That was Lisa Materazzo, Ford Global Chief Marketing Officer. My name is EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age. I want to thank our producer, Lauren Ciardio, and invite everyone to subscribe to the Marketer's Brief podcast on your favorite channel. We'll catch you next time.
Marketer's Brief listeners get $40 off an adage.com subscription. Sharpen your marketing edge and visit adage.com/brief for your discount.